You definitely do. And what's really interesting is that McKinsey last year in 2023 came out with research with all the businesses that they've been working on. And those that hired a mom, actively hired women, and in particular moms, had a 35% increase in profitability. I mean, because exactly for those points and those reasons, right? They can do multitask, and that leads to efficiencies and ultimately affects your bottom line, which is profitability.
Welcome to Married to the Startup. I'm Alicia McKenzie, a wellness entrepreneur and digital creator. Alongside me is my amazing husband, George, the CEO who's always ready for a new challenge. We've been navigating marriage and running startups for over a decade, and we're here to share the real, unfiltered journey with you. Join us for insights and candid conversations about integrating love, family, and entrepreneurship. This is Married to the Startup, where every day is a new adventure. Welcome to Married to the Startup, episode number 19. And I am here today with my co-host.
Oh, that's me?
Yeah, you're the co-host.
Yes, that's me. Hey.
And we have with us Erika Feldhus. Erika Hanafin Feldhus.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on. I feel like I've known you for years. Hey Mama has been around for a very long time. I think I first joined in 2019. But before I go down that road, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your startup, where you are in your business journey, all the things. We just want to know everything.
Oh my gosh, all the things. Well, one, I'm so happy to be here, and it's so great to see both of you. We were just saying that the last time I saw you in person was at our Strong Like a Mama event in New York, which was 2022 with baby Maya. But I am Erika Hanafin Feldhus. I wear many hats, but at my core, I am a devoted mom, stepmom, entrepreneur, podcast host, and a passionate advocate for empowering women in business. I have over a decade in startups from New York City to San Francisco, some of the top VCs like Kleiner Perkins, all the way to institutional investors and now private equity. I am the CEO and co-founder of Hello Mamas and Hey Mama, which is the membership community that connects and supports over 75,000 moms in the US to accelerate their businesses through events, programs, and resources. And Hello Mamas, which we just co-founded and launched last week, is a platform dedicated to supporting every mom's success, whether she's running her own business, working part-time, or simply planning for motherhood. So I'm excited to be here and share more about my journey and all that we are doing at Hey Mama and Hello Mamas.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot. That's quite the resume.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so let's get started with Hey Mama because I know you came in after the company was already founded.
Mhm.
And if I recall, there was two other founders, correct? So
Mhm.
explain this little journey to me. How did you get involved and how did that transition work?
Yes. I mean, that feels like a blur, honestly, but I, as I mentioned, I have a decade in startups, was actually in San Francisco, had just taken my third company to an acquisition to a public company, Ulta Beauty. And I was doing a lot of consulting work and also saw this trend on really helping actually corporations act like startups and build startups within their own organizations. And so I was doing a lot of corporate innovation work for the likes of Procter and Gamble and Cliff Bar and some heavy Fortune, really 550 businesses. And I had gotten introduced to Hey Mama, and so Hey Mama actually became a client of mine first. And I was doing some consulting work on growth for really revenue and partnerships. And we joke now that I've had the fastest career at Hey Mama. I was started in 2020, December of 2020. I was hired full time running sales and business development by May, and I became CEO in July. So it was really quite a fast journey.
Wow.
And yes, all the things. And that was like a very interesting few years, but there were two original co-founders. Amory is still an active co-founder of the business, and her and I have now co-founded Hello Mamas together, and it's been a really fun ride.
My goodness. That's that's a blur, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and I guess you said you had worked for a couple other companies or founded a few other companies that you've taken through acquisition. Can you
Mhm.
elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So actually, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My grandparents started a business in their garage, and that business turned into a global business that was ultimately acquired by 3M, a public company. My dad took that company to global scale. My grandmother was actually a CEO in the late 70s, which was unheard of, and a true pioneer for women in particular in business, and did a ton of philanthropy to support women in business. And so throughout my early childhood, I just was surrounded by business growth and the fundamentals and how do you build a business and strategic plans and all the fun things. And it just, I think that there's also this innate nature of being the oldest of four girls that you're kind of the leader, and then also just being so passionate about building businesses. And so I had a very successful early career in New York City. I was one of the very first employees to help start all of the taxi advertising. So, all of the screens inside taxis. And ultimately, that was sold to a public company as well. And then we had gone on to actually make another acquisition of another company. And that was kind of my first foray into acquisitions.
Hmm.
My very first startup prior to that was actually started, and the CEO was Aileen Lee, who at the time was part of Kleiner Perkins, and then went on to found and grow Cowboy Ventures. And so I was always enamored by and fortunate to be supported by some incredible women throughout my journey. And I was brought out to San Francisco by an investment group, a private investment group that was investing in early stage companies, really focused on women who are starting these businesses, and was always that first hire and or the first executive on the team to help grow. And have been fortunate enough to finalize three, and then ultimately Hey Mama, we just took Hey Mama to an acquisition which closed in March of this year. So that was four acquisitions that I've been incremental in.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. Yes. And I will say, look, as you know, in the startup world, it's not only about acquisitions. There have been some failures along the way, which have really led to where we are today, and also to who I am as a leader and an entrepreneur, and really builder of businesses.
I'm
Yeah.
going to play this back to my daughter because we actually just had this conversation last night about her report card and that she doesn't quite put herself out there because she's afraid to fail publicly. And we're like, no, no,
Mm.
no. Failure is a part of it. You have to fail at something because that is how you learn how not to do things.
Yeah. They're all just opportunities disguised as
It's
failure.
It's so true. And it's interesting because really, yes, please play this back to your daughter, because as the oldest, right, for me, and then being also just naturally type A, for me, failure was like, oh my gosh, I can't fail, right? You just can't. That's not even in my vocabulary. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then it's not until you're going through the journey and you're realizing that I'm failing all the time. Like, I might be failing in business, and there might be some failures along the way. I could be failing in my personal life, right? Going through a divorce, which to me was initially a big failure, right? And then also just failing on the little things, like forgetting to pack the water bottle before they go to school or something, right? Like, it's part of life, and it's also really important to your growth as well.
Yeah. And I think as you were talking about growing up with your grandparents having started a business and very entrepreneurial, how do you, I mean, it obviously shaped your opinion of what you wanted to do with your life and how you saw your ceiling. So
Mm.
it's just interesting to, as you grew up in that world and how you have now become a productive adult and, starting, founding and exiting companies that, it didn't seem out of reach for you.
No, it didn't seem out of reach. I'm extremely fortunate and blessed to have had those learnings and have seen it. I also saw also what goes into building a business, right? Like my father, God bless him, he was gone for a large part of my early years, right? And same for my sister right after me. So you see the work. And I think that that's really important and something that I've also recognized with my boys now, that they see that mommy's, you've got to do the work. You're not just going to have things handed to you. It's not going to be all rose colored glasses here. You have to put in the work. And sometimes it's going to be challenging, and it's the work that you're putting in and the growth that you're going through that helps you come out stronger.
Okay, so I have to know, who is your grandmother and are there any books about her? Because I feel like there should be.
There really should be. My grandmother was, she's my idol. She, or one of my idols, I should say, a true pioneer. There was many articles written about her, and she has done a significant amount of not only just her, believing that women should be educated, supporting women in education for girls all across it, really, on the East Coast predominantly. And God bless her, she is looking down on me. And sometimes I really do call on her for strength as we go through some of these navigating times.
What a role model. Like, that makes
Yes.
me, yeah, fills my heart.
And I will say this also, if my grandmother also cultivated her son, her oldest son, my dad, to really also truly empower women as well. And so I was very fortunate. My father, who had four girls, and his joke was four girls all under the age of seven, a dog named Lady, and a wife. Like he was surrounded by women,
Yeah.
um, but he empowered us. And I'll never forget. This is my favorite line. I talk about it often. Where we're sitting around the dinner table, and he says, he's on this like something, right? Like the conversation at the dinner table was always important at that point. He was like, there is nothing a man can do that a woman can't except pee standing up. And let me tell you, we proved him that we could do that the next day. And man, I wish I had invented the device that now we use at like campgrounds and everything else, because I would be, a billionaire at this point. But it was just so, I'll never forget that. And it was just really empowering, and really helped shape who I am today.
Yeah, that's a great story. I think, empowerment and, setting life goals can be done at the dinner table, at the kitchen table, and it's really it starts there at home, that, setting there are no limits, right? And having those adult conversations with your children around what's possible and not holding back. I think we try to talk about business in front of the kids so that it just becomes normal. It's not, oh, it's a bridge too far to be the CEO. It's a bridge too far to be an entrepreneur. No, it's just part of life, and you can choose it or not, but it's not, it's available.
It's true. And you're absolutely right. It all starts at home. And also, I always joke, having gone through this recent acquisition with Hey Mama, the boys learned, like, we're watching the votes. Like it was like an election on who's voted, who approved it, looking at the tracker and everything. They're seeing democracy at its finest. They're learning about fractions and percentages and all of the things that go on to it. And they're also seeing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've been through how many acquisitions, babe? It's not easy.
Yeah, and it's
So
work. I think that's the one thing that everyone, especially entrepreneurs, they see the fun part of starting a business and bringing an idea and making a website, and oh, it's great, but the work part of it is way more than you imagined going in.
yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Not for the faint of heart.
Very true.
Okay. So, Hey Mama is kind of going through a growth slash rebrand. I know you've got Hey Mama. I know you have Hello Mamas. How
Mhm.
are you differentiating? How are you approaching that? Because from a consumer standpoint, I'm like, okay, which is which? Which one am I going to now? How are you trying to just create this new narrative and build the branding story behind a bit of a transition? Because I know there are some people who are in the middle of a pivot, or maybe if they're listening to this, how are you repositioning Hey Mama to now be Hello Mamas?
Yes, great question. I would say from a startup perspective, we're really at this maturing phase. We're at a strategic growth and expansion phase. And what that means is, as a result of our acquisition of Hey Mama by private equity this year, we had an opportunity to really build a more inclusive parent brand, which is Hello Mamas. And that inclusive parent brand is supporting all moms, whether professional or working from home or navigating the motherhood journey. And so it's both this opportunity to create a stronger ecosystem that really supports moms. And at the same time, it's also allowed us to get extremely clear. I will say this is the clearest we have been at Hey Mama and what we're doing and how we're empowering our members within Hey Mama to accelerate their businesses. And then also the inclusive opportunity of motherhood for moms that are going through their motherhood journey and want to feel supported and have the connection and the access to resources. And so by what we've done is we have this parent brand Hello Mamas, which is officially launched. It's an app. So we've launched an app that is native to Hello Mamas. Any Hello Mamas member can have access to multiple conversations, resources, and then groups within their motherhood stages. So whether you're planning to become pregnant, you're expecting, or you have a teen who is learning how to drive, and then you're soon going to or applying for college, right? You have you have the support at every phase. I like to think of it as like I struggled when I became a mom that I was finding who are my people, right? Like where do I find my people? And then I really enjoyed working, but I also, wanted to know what the heck I needed to do when my son was starting preschool. Like it was a totally different journey than the first 6 months of postpartum. And so you join these groups or you join a Facebook group to find your people, and then you kind of tap out of it and you're like, wait, that was great at this moment, but I'm really looking for more. And so we're really creating this next level of really Facebook groups for moms that you will always feel connected and supported through the app, through the conversations. And then we're bringing our knowledge and the learnings that we have gained from hosting events all across the country with Hey Mama and bringing those over to the Hello Mama side. So now we have opportunities for members to engage in meetups, and it's hyper local. So you want to grab a cup of coffee or have a play date or take your kids to the pumpkin patch, whatever it might be, you can do that and have that support hyper locally, but also learn from the shared wisdom of a true village, right? Of moms who have been there or are going through it at the same time you are. And Hey Mama at the same time is really doubling down on business, which has
Okay.
been foundational to what we have, our core, which has always been to accelerate moms in business. And by having all of our lifestyle aspect and the engagement and the connections on Hello Mamas, Hey Mama will now be really hyper focused on how can we provide our members with access to capital, understanding marketing through webinars or roundtable opportunities, still having the in-person connection of strategic opportunities to whiteboard, what we call it whiteboard and wine, whiteboard your challenges, but it's really creating a clear delineation of support foundationally across the board, but also being really clear on that journey and that phase. And so maybe as a mom, maybe I don't have a career yet, but when my kids are in school, maybe I want to have a career. And so now you have this ecosystem of Hey Mama that you could go to, or vice versa, right? So we're creating access and opportunity, and the ability to connect and collaborate seamlessly across the globe.
I love it. I absolutely understand now. Think that was a perfect explanation. So Hey Mama has really niched down and
Yes,
Hello Mamas has niched up.
exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
I've got it. I mean, and Hey Mama is an amazing resource. I've found a VA there. I've found an accountant there. I've found somebody to help with marketing. I mean, it's a fantastic resource, and I love how you just made that delineation. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And so was the exit to private equity for Hey Mama really around growth capital to accelerate that part of the business so that you could inject, professional money to help grow it and then maybe make it available to entrepreneurs in the network?
Yes, I mean, it's pretty fundamental for a private equity acquisition is hyper focused on growth for sure. We, to be fully transparent, we didn't anticipate this growth so early on. We just kind of accelerated that growth, which is quintessential for the startup. Like, let's quickly adapt and pivot and iterate as we're going. But I am really excited for 2025. I think that the amount of work that the team and that we have put into getting clear on our mission and our vision and helping us better understand how we are articulating our business and how we can continue to provide that support along the way has definitely accelerated the growth and across hopefully, and it proves to be valuable really across the globe because with Hello Mamas well, Hey Mama is hyper focused and pretty predominant here in the US. Hello Mamas will be able to be scalable very quickly.
Yeah, I don't. Now that I'm thinking of it, I there's a hole in the market.
Yes.
There is nothing like this out there right now.
There's a hole in the market. And I mean, I could talk all day long about the statistics and the studies that we're seeing around mental health. And particularly as we talk about entrepreneurship and mompreneurs and the amount of burnout that we're seeing, right? If you want to call it burnout, I hate that word, but it's true, right? And so, what we're really, really fundamentally proving is creating a more joyful and happy outcome for women, in particular moms, because it is proven that when women are surrounded by other women, their happiness and joy improves. And if we can do that at scale and have that ripple effect, both feeling that connection digitally and then also locally, I think hopefully that prioritization of mental health and those outcomes will improve pretty significantly.
Well, this is a perfect segue into my next thought, which is running a business is really, really difficult. As a
Yes.
professional, how do you integrate your personal life, your business life, your children, your aspirations, what you want to do in the future? How does all of that fit together?
I think that's a really great question because if you had asked me this question 10 years ago, my answer would have been very different. I would have very tried to have created a clear delineation between this is who I am professionally and this is who I am personally. Now I am a firm believer that integrating both the demands of running a business with your personal life, especially when it gets hectic and all of the things, it's important to have intentional balance, to have adaptability, and to really find your support system. And I'm incredibly blessed that I get to lead these communities of women that are just I get goosebumps every time I talk about our community because they're so incredibly supportive and they are there to uplift and share their experiences and they're not there to create conflict or negativity, right? And so I think there's also this trend that we're seeing that 94% of mompreneurs that are running their own business are finding that it's giving them also more control over their time, right? And so I've always been a big passionate leader and proponent that in 2013, after my son was born, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times published this article around its quality, not quantity. And I've always applied that to my life, particularly as I've become a mom and a stepmom, and then also navigating those challenges at home. And so I try to infuse the the quality at home, and know that when I'm traveling, sometimes mommy has to travel and we're going to have that conversation, but when I'm home, I'm going to be present. We're going to do fun things, and we're going to have those conversations at the dinner table, or we're going to take that time over the weekend in between sports to maybe just relax and snuggle or watch TV, watch a show, or whatever it might be. And then I do think that mental health is really important. So back to that community and network, support. I found my team. I have, I call her my Julie. Like, she's not just like, she's there for me to talk about mental health and to help me understand, create boundaries, which I had a really hard time creating, and how to be adaptable and to, really take the time for myself. So all of those components have helped me as I've navigated both professional and personal life. And I'll leave this one final thought too, is that we at Hey Mama started an initiative that's our Motherhood on the Resume campaign. And the whole premise, it's a trademarked campaign that we officially launched in 2020. And then obviously the pandemic exacerbated the campaign. But what it's fundamentally there to show is that when you become a mom, there are transferable innate skills you immediately learn, right? You are learning how to project manage, time manage, negotiate, especially when they're toddler. I mean, negotiating with a toddler before bedtime, like it's
Impossible.
it's impossible, right? And so, those are the traits that also help me as a leader to also become more empathetic, patient, really, listen and create clear communication and transparency. All of that is where that intertwines between the personal and the professional.
That's one of my favorite campaigns, by the way, Motherhood on the Resume. I literally tell everybody about it because it speaks so deeply to me,
Yeah.
especially when I've been in the room when he's doing interviews with people, and you can almost see women shrink when you ask them about that gap in their resume. And
It's
it shouldn't be that way, because
no.
staying at home to give birth and to raise a child and to send them off to school, that is hard work. And it's not something that you should shy away from. And I love that you're giving women the tools to teach them how to speak to that eloquently and professionally. So I absolutely love that campaign that you guys do.
Yes, thank you. And we're actually soon to announce a few things. We've kicked off a mom turnship in partnership with a big agency out on the West Coast. We're kicking that off again this year, and it'll come back officially in May of 2025. But I love this initiative because it's so true, and the confidence is just so incredible to watch. To your point, so it's amazing.
Yeah. And having done several startups, and I think some of my most productive hires have been women that are reintroducing themselves into the work field
Yes.
after having been a full-time stay-at-home mom, or have been, working on in the home previously. And I think that the opportunity, and then once they had it, they just accelerated faster than like someone coming out of college. Because to your point, there, it's not on the resume, but they have so many skills. And you say negotiating with a toddler, it's more like hostage negotiation to try to get bedtime done. So that skill set, and being able to like project manage, and being able to deal with crazy engineers that are just like toddlers, and being able to deal with crazy CEOs who are oftentimes like toddlers as well, and getting everybody to work. And I think that, you know, having them become part of the team, and then being able to support them, and have them pick a field that they want to accelerate in. And I think that's, I would encourage anybody who's listening who's has a startup that, if you're looking for one of those first few hires, that you need to be jacks of all trade and help with everything. Someone, a mother or a woman coming back into the field is probably my best hire of all time. She's followed me to 3 or 4 companies now. I remember when I did our first interview with her, and she didn't really have a resume. She was talking to me about her first job when she was working and where she met her husband and the stuff she was doing there. And then she's taken the last 15 years to be a mom. And she's like, hey, my best skill is I'm that junk drawer. Like whatever you have, throw it in, I'll take care of it. And it proved to be very, very true. And now she's, a rock star.
Yeah, I
It's
know
so
exactly who
true.
you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing. Like she's
Yeah.
she's the jack of all trades. She's so loyal. She's brilliant. She's kind. She can deal with somebody crying. She can deal with somebody yelling. Like you need to hire a mom.
You definitely do. And what's really interesting is that McKinsey last year in 2023 came out with research with all the businesses that they've been working on. And those that hired a mom, actively hired women, and in particular moms, had a 35% increase in profitability. I mean, because exactly for those points and those reasons, right? They can do multitask, and that leads to efficiencies and ultimately affects your bottom line, which is profitability.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. 100%. Okay, so I mean, moving on, you let's talk about some challenges because I know we have entrepreneurs that are listening, whether they're in startups or whether they're thinking about starting a business. What
Mhm.
is a business challenge that comes to your mind where it was difficult to navigate, but now that you're looking back, you learned so much from it?
Yes, I mean, I have so many challenges, probably more challenges than successes or wins, quite honestly. And as we shared, it's a huge part of your growth. I would say that my most biggest challenge when it has was actually about 2 years ago, a year ago, was that I was going through a terrible divorce, which took a huge part of my, at the time, what I thought was my identity, and managing this significant personal upheaval of complex negotiations and immense emotional and professional pressure, while at the same time also in diligence with Hey Mama.
Oh
And
gosh.
so I was navigating, it was this true upheaval of everything that I am passionate about doing, and also the personal component of that. And it was hard because I had to really at that point try to separate the personal and the professional side of the that challenge and that problem, but also find this stability in the business, to be an effective leader, and keep the team engaged, and maintain adaptability. And you want to talk about complex negotiations and all the things that go along with that. It was a very interesting period of my life, both personally and professionally. And probably the hardest acquisition I've ever been through of the
I
four.
can't imagine why.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, geez, diligence alone and
Yes.
running a business at the same time for people who haven't done it, it is like having three jobs because the diligence is probably two jobs, and then you still have to run the company.
Yes.
And the diligence is, you know, all contingent on successfully running the company, which you're doing as a third job to the diligence two jobs, and then having to go through a divorce at the same time. I just could not imagine the stress that puts on you.
Yes. It honestly, when we really talk about blurs, I don't know how, how you just kind of adapt. And I think that's like the entrepreneurial spirit. You're just like, I'm in, I'm going to accomplish this, and we're going to get through it. But the biggest part of that success and that journey was truly finding support in my team. And that was not just the community, but and my professional team, but also my personal team, prioritizing my mental health, being adaptive, and fundamentally realizing that that was a season that I was going through, and it was a lesson that I was going to learn, and a very fun story that at some day I was going to be able to tell. And uh, you know that was going to evolve and it was going to be okay one way or another. But it was a very, very challenging time in my life, personally and professionally.
Man, I think the biggest takeaway is that if you can make it through that, your next acquisition, your next diligence is gonna be like a walk in the park. You're like, "This is easy." Like
Yeah. But it just reaffirms that, e- everything's temporary, and
It's very
the
true.
stress, the timing, like they're ups and downs, but it's all temporary. As long as you keep your head on that, over the horizon is where you're going, that you can get through the troughs. Same
Yeah.
with a business, right? Like sometimes there's seasonals and seasons in the business that are more challenging than others,
Yeah.
and requires more of your time, effort, and energy. And then there's times where you just feel like you can't lose. You're winning awards. Every bid is a win, and you're
Mhm.
crushing it. And you got to be happy in those times and know that the trough is coming.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
so let's take a step back. Let's say 15 years ago, you're young, you're getting ready to jump into your first startup.
We're all still young.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what
15
are you
years
saying?
ago,
No, I'm just
we're all still young. What are you talking about?
You're so young. But what is one piece of advice you wish that you would have had back then before you're getting ready to jump into your first business?
Yeah. I think the biggest learning and biggest piece of advice that I wish I had was that you have to stay adaptable and embrace change. And even understanding that those two words, right, adaptability and change, have to be coexist, especially when things are disrupted. And when you're starting a business, oftentimes we're like so focused on having this strategy perfectly crafted, and it has to be perfectly on, and this is exactly what it's got to be, and these are the goals that we have to achieve. And really, when you learn over time that the most successful ventures and the most successful leaders are those who pivot because they can adapt, and who pivot with confidence that when challenges arise, there's also opportunities. And you can use those opportunities to try new approaches or innovate or, shift quickly, whatever it might be. um, and fundamentally now it's progress, not perfect, right? We're really focused on that progress and good, and using that to obviously still have the data driven decisions. But I, I think that that's really important. I would encourage, and when I'm mentoring other leaders, that it's also that old adage, like scale quickly, pivot fast, right? Like and so, or fail and pivot, all of those kind of nuances and words. But adaptability and really embracing change would be my two biggest pieces of advice.
I always like to follow that one up with what's the worst business advice you were ever given? And I think that it's always fun for me to listen because there's so many, in my opinion, there's so much bad advice out there. I just love to hear what people hear.
Yeah. I think the worst piece of advice I've ever been given was, don't trust your gut, you're too emotional.
Oh, God.
Especially as a female leader, and now especially as a mom. I am a huge data driven person. I look at the data, I think it's crucial, but I am also huge on my instinct and my intuition. And that has proven time and time again to be so successful. Whether it's, certainly you don't want to ignore the data, but I can tell you, even with Hey Mama, right? The data was telling us one thing, but the community and the intuition was telling us something completely different. And so creating um, that gut empathy, that gut intuition, beyond the data, can certainly drive impactful growth. And I also think fosters, authentic relationships, that also allow you to stay true to your mission. When you're not trusting those things and you're like, oh yeah, let's just throw this and let's, no, that doesn't feel right to me. It often tends to not work out. Right.
Yeah, I think authenticity is probably the biggest predictor of success. If you have a company and you're not authentic to who you are and you're not authentic to the value or the purpose that the business is, then it's going to fail quickly. And, if it was
1000%.
all just, reading the financial metrics and forecasting and, looking at the data and making decisions, then, you wouldn't need a leader. You would just need an accountant
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's pretty easy if that's all it took.
Exactly.
So I'm big into wellness. I love all things wellness. What have you done this week to exercise? You're a busy woman, you have children, you run a large corporation. How do you move your body?
Well, I think moving my body is really important. And wellness is a huge part of my ethos as well. I have really been getting into strength training and really forcing myself to get outside. And even, the boys, we just finished baseball. Last night was the championship game. Unfortunately, they lost by at the last stretch. But even just, kind of walking or getting outside is really important. And I also take time to, I want to say meditate, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just sitting there and like thinking or listening or writing or listening to a mantra of something to just be present and still. I think there's something really important about being still. Um, and so those are my daily kind of practices. And I always start my morning with warm water and lemon and way before coffee. And then
Yeah.
obviously a balanced diet. But yeah, those are like foundational to my everyday.
Well, you just said baseball, and I saw my husband perk up in my peripheral.
Oh,
Yeah, lots of baseball in this house too.
Yeah, he coaches our son's baseball team. It just ended last week. But how old are your sons? What division do they play?
yes. So my oldest is 11, and then my two bonus babies are 10 and 7, and all three of them play baseball too. So Aiden and Braden, fortunately, were on the same team this year. But I joke because I really wasn't a baseball mom. I was really like the lacrosse, the football, the basketball, the more I don't know, high impact, more energetic sports and more fun to watch, certainly as a spectator. But I went to school in the Bronx. And so it was, I was always at Yankees games, and it was like, unless you're a Yankee or playing for the Yankees, like I'm not sure about the baseball. And now we laugh because Braden over this summer was like, Mom, I think I want to play baseball with my bros. Like they're all practicing outside. And I was like, what? You're going to give up like lacrosse and, flag football for baseball? And he's like, yeah. And Ben, my partner, is like, actually, Erica is really good. And so now this season, baseball has literally taken over our lives. And it's been a very fun process to watch. Also, a really incredible as a parent, learning to see your kid actually decide that they're going to do something, follow through with putting in the time and the work to practice and dedicate the mental and physical component to the sport, and ultimately having an amazing season that was really fun. So I now laugh at that, but it's definitely
You're a baseball mom now. Welcome.
I'm a baseball mom and a boy mom for sure.
We have snacks.
Yes, the
So
snacks.
did you watch the World Series?
Yes, yes, and
Were they as heartbroken as my son was?
well, I think my son, he must think I'm magic because I was in New York, and obviously like New Yorker, New York Yankees, etc. He's like, Mom, the Yankees are playing. They better win. You're going to New York. I'm like, okay. I get home. Mom, you were in New York and the Yankees win. They finally
Yeah.
win. They're going to the World Series. Then I had to go to LA, and the Dodgers were playing the Yankees. And he's like, no, don't go to. I'm like, yes, I'm very magical, like they're
No
going to
LA
win
trip
because
for you.
my physical presence is there. But sure enough, obviously we know the results of that. But yes, it was because he was really disappointed that I had to go to LA during that critical time.
Way to go, Mom.
Yeah, I
You're
really
the reasons
stayed
the
in New
Yankees
York.
lost.
I really should have stayed in New York.
So, what's on the horizon for Hey Mama and Hello Mamas, and how can we support?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's a really exciting time. I think 2025 is going to be a incredible year, a pivotal year for moms. For Hey Mama and Hello Mamas, we'll continue to empower more moms. We'll provide more access, more meaningful conversations and connections. Um, like I said, we're doubling down on the business components of Hey Mama and ensuring our members have the tools and the opportunities to grow their business. And then personally, I'm working on some exciting projects that will deepen my personal support of women globally and continue to advocate for women's empowerment through leadership and philanthropy and collaboration. So a lot of exciting things. I think, ahead 2025 is really going to be about expansion for us. That's my word.
That's fantastic. I actually just launched a new venture with 3 friends called Next Chapter, which is teaching women to change the mindset on what they should do to what they could do. And I definitely see some synergies with Hey Mama. So I would love to just figure out how we can collaborate in some form or fashion in 2025.
I would love that. Yes. Thank you. That would be amazing because I always love collaborating with you. So
Well, Erica, this has been great. How can people find you? How can they support you? Do your plugs.
yes, thank you. I've had an amazing time. I love the laughs and the honest conversations. Thank you for having me. You can find more about Hello Mamas at hellomamas.co or heymama.co. But you can find us in the App Store, whether it's Apple or Google. Download Hello Mamas, and you'll immediately have access to both communities, if it, or just one with Hello Mamas. So find us in the App Store, or you can also follow us on social at Hello Mama's app or at Hey Mama in Biz.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time. I truly appreciate it. I know that the days are long, but the years are short. So we're trying to squeeze a lot in, but I appreciate you being here.
No, I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to Married to the Startup. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please take a moment to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. Your support helps us reach more people and keeps the conversation going. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, drop me a message. I love hearing from you guys. Until next time.
George, out.